Welcome to AG's Ace. The West needs to do much more where Putin is concerned after his attack and declaration of war against Ukraine. Now, if you look at the Putin playbook, it says he got away with the seizure of Crimea in 2014, his attack on Georgia in 2008, an occupation of parts of that country, and now the Ukraine move is the third part of that trilogy. It has to do much more to ensure Putin is reined in, his ambitions thwarted, and a string element of deterrence introduced. That is where the West is concerned. It cannot be seen as this nice, pliable block of nations who speak a lot about democracy, use nice, kind words, give these glittering speeches, and just about that. They need to do much more than that. They need to do a lot of muscle flexing where Putin is concerned because he is no ordinary leader. And that is why I say, unsurprisingly, that the statements and sanctions imposed by Joe Biden, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and Germany's decision to suspend the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia have not dissuaded Putin at all, and it has not stopped him from declaring war. In fact, in his speech, if you remember, he scoffed at these sanctions because he's already factored in these sanctions for a while in his list, and he knows how to counter that. So they have to watch out for that. Now, Putin needs to experience fear, I believe. So unless he experiences fear, he's not going to back off because he is a dictator. Now that can only happen by increasing boots on the ground. Where the West is concerned, troops from NATO need to be parked on borders flanking Russia and Ukraine. Now countries falling into that ambit would be Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states. To make that happen, the NATO response force needs to be deployed on the borders of Russia and Ukraine, beef up the intelligence gathering network with regular defense drills. Similarly, NATO's standing naval task force must also flex its muscles in the Black Sea and create pressure in the Arctic, where Putin is really and deeply interested in. The West also needs to now pull out of talks to jumpstart the Iranian nuclear deal with which it was going ahead. This needs to be part of its bouquet of moves, I believe. And there's a critical thing here where the West is concerned. It needs to confuse and defocus the enemy by opening multiple flanks. That is one also a very important way of keeping Russia confused. Increase in defense spending by the West is another step. Yes, you might be surprised to hear that because a lot of us believe that the West is already spending so much money on defense. Why more? But strange as it may sound, this is now required. Experts say US defense spending is overstated as per a recent analysis from the Center for Economic Policy Research. And there it says that when national spending is adjusted for purchasing power, the US spends only slightly more than Russia and China combined. The NATO defense spending is up over the past few years, yet almost all nations remain well below the recommended level of 2% of GDP. Now, the European Union, if it were to jig up to reach the 2% level, it would add something up to $50 billion and $70 billion a year. Biden has also announced that he will meet with leaders of the G7 to impose severe sanctions on Russia in support of Ukraine. He has issued a statement in favor of the Ukrainian President Zelensky, and he has asked for everyone to speak out clearly against President Putin's flagrant aggression. I think it is high time for the West to view Putin as a trigger-happy dictator who doesn't blink before violating national borders. It should be very evident by now how he operates, and he wants to restore what best he can of the old USSR. At that point in time, he was a KGB agent, and he always felt slighted, and he always felt dwarfed by the fact that Russia got cut down after the USSR splintered. So he wants to restore that old glory. He wants to do something to protect the motherland. And he also wants to crucially divert the attention of the Russians from the poor economic situation in their country. Now, the Biden administration has done very well by utilizing intelligence and data so far, but this is an ongoing process. Where sanctions are concerned, economic sanctions, that is, they need to quickly move away from the SWIFT system, which is a huge messaging network used by financial institutions such as banks, etc. There has to be a ban on dealing with large parts of the Russian economy, personal sanctions on top-level officials and especially the oligarch section. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline should see zero activity, squeeze Russia from every side so that Putin blinks and blinks fast. Banning international travel to Russia would be another arrow in the quiver. Move anti-air and anti-armor military systems into Ukraine, and now that could be moved through passages of the far west of Ukraine, considering its vastness. Lastly, the West needs to have an evacuation plan present for President Zelensky and his team. They need to give greater command and strategic support to Ukrainian-dominated areas. And it also needs to ensure that the network of ambassadors at the UN and the international organizations all over the world that it has, their presence is protected. And it should send a very strong signal to Russia that it doesn't matter what you do, the West is not going to take this lying down. That is the crucial signal. That is the crucial message that must go out. Thanks for watching 86.